being a state prosecutor, but a federal prosecutor. And in doing so, one of the things that I've prosecuted as a federal prosecutor for over 6 years was gun trafficking offenses, crimes of violence related to firearms. The states work very well together, and the federal government works well in terms of sharing information. That's frankly, from a law enforcement perspective, crucial. And one of the things I talked about earlier was the importance of partnerships. And because of ATF, which is our federal partners, we have a full-time ATF agent assigned to our office. We have access to any information that we need in terms of prosecuting and locating straw purchasers. Some of the things that it is a federal issue, it is a state issue, it is one that we partner with. It doesn't change the fact that there could be significantly stricter laws about people who are permitted, like Shira talked about, to purchase firearms. One of the things that we run into is exactly what she mentioned, which is somebody who is high. Do you think they should be in possession of a gun? Because I don't. I don't think I would see a single person in this audience who would raise their hand in response to that question. And yet, you can't, unless you meet really strict guidelines about whether or not they are permitted to. And those are difficult burdens for us to meet as prosecutors, and it's a fine line, but it's, I believe, a line that we should be able to cross and be able to enact stricter gun control measures to individuals who are legally being permitted to actually purchase firearms.
Can I add? Absolutely. Yeah, I also didn't want to imply that it was the individual district attorneys. The ATF is limited in the data it can make public, and it also puts, we think, and I'd love to know, it puts things in their memorandums of agreement and their tracing about what data the counties can share, so that it really does have to be a state issue. But the ATF, and I also just want to point out that the ATF does a great job with our counties in tracing guns, but I want to be very clear, it is not like Law and Order, like, you know how they type in a serial number and they're like, oh, that's John Linder's gun, let's go get it. The ATF is not computerized. They are not by law allowed to be computerized. And there's this great 2020 from ABC. They are literally silos of documents, paper documents. So when her detective calls down to ATF with a serial number, somebody goes and looks through paper documents to find the original manufacturer. They will call that manufacturer, who will also look through paper documents to find where that gun was originally sent. They will go to that dealer, who will go through their basement, and again, they're not required to keep these documents at some point they destroy them. And hopefully they will find that it was John's gun, and then we'll get to John's house and he'll say, I lost that gun. And he's not required to have reported it. So it is really difficult, so they do a great job, but we want more. We want the data to inform the policy, because you know what they say, right, in Congress or in Harrisburg. Well, we need data. You know, how do you know that policy is going to work? Well, you've blocked us from getting the data. I mean, so it's like a vicious circle.
And since my name was mentioned,
yeah.
That's why Delco United wants background checks on every gun. Every gun has a fingerprint. And we want to give district attorney's office, the state, the federal government, every opportunity to catch these people. I think I can share this, district attorney. When I was mayor, we found some data that a particular gun was used across a number of years, and about 45 incidents, that same gun traveled back and forth across the city. When you look at the tracings of a particular gun, I think I can share that and say that's the kind of stuff we need in order for law enforcement to do its job and find out where those pockets are. Now, one of the things that says to me is that even though in a city like Chester, 4.7 square miles, and people don't have a lot of money there, they're trading guns back and forth, and the bad guys are selling them to each other or renting them in some cases for $50. You want to make a hit, they had pockets where they put the guns and they would sell access to those pockets. You know, and one gang would move them, and another gang moves them, and so forth. So their level of sophistication is greater or higher than our level of sophistication and cooperation about trying to catch them. State, federal, and local, it has to be partnerships, respectable partnerships, common sense partnerships, so that we can stop this kind of stuff from going on in Chester and other places. Well, not being mayor now, or our mayor, but not in office. The police were on 12-hour shifts. We had approximately 6 officers on patrol at night. And one of the reasons we have some of the problem, I shouldn't say it that way, one of the reasons why some of these things were happening is because the bargaining unit bargained for this and that, and you have the minimum mandate for a minimum amount of police officers being on duty. And so, yeah, they overwork 12 hours. You don't feel much like on that 12th hour, you have a low tolerance level. I was talking to the people at 911 Center the other day. Now, our police in Chester were answering a call every 12 to 15 minutes. Every 12 to 15 minutes. They're going from one call to another. When there's a shooting, now you gotta man that site, you gotta get ready for CID to come in, and those police can't leave that site. Remember, we only had six on board, so that means we gotta start calling, and we gotta call more people in. That's overtime, and hopefully we pray it's not on a holiday, because that's double time and a half, some kind of ridiculous number. And then when we go to pay pensions, we're $200 million in the hole about pensions. But manning a city like Chester, and a lot of police officers wanted to come to Chester because of the activity, because they know they're going to get the kind of experience that they want to have if they decide to go somewhere else. But manning a police department in a city like Chester is an Act 47, which is called a financially distressed district. And so we don't have a lot of dollars, and they have to be managed carefully and appropriate, and that's why we have as backup the DA's office for CID and so forth. So, District Attorney.
Our Chester police officers do an incredible job, and I think Mayor Linder would wholeheartedly agree with that. We appreciate that under Commissioner Blair, that he has made that department even better and pulled it together. Nowadays, you will see, if you travel through the city of Chester, more and more patrol cars in the neighborhoods, which is often just being seen can make the difference, right? You need to be out there not responding only to calls, but being visible. In recognition of the violence in the city of Chester, what our office does is that we do for Chester what we would do for any neighborhood that calls us in, but not many towns take advantage of that, which is we have partnered with Chester Police Department. Every single time an individual is shot or killed, we respond. Every single time. That means our entire crime scene unit comes out, our detective homicide bureau comes out, our ballistics people are up and ready, so that we can quickly, because time is of the essence. Time is of the essence in terms of solving that crime and also preventing that individual who has obviously shown a proclivity for violence from committing another act of violence and taking them off the streets. We appreciate the partnerships which have enabled us to engage in that kind of behavior, which means the city has to support our efforts. They have to actually ask, and they graciously have done so, and we graciously always will step up and provide. The overtime issue, I recognize is a problem. Our office faces that overtime. At 2 o'clock in the morning, when many of these homicides occur, we too send our police officers and our detectives out. However, we do so gladly, because at the end of the day, if you're choosing between money and you're choosing between a life, you're going to support a life every single time. I assure you, Joanna.
Yeah, I'm just going to respond to the second part of the question about bias. I think it's a problem for police and all of us every day. The problem has become more pronounced, and we're seeing it more publicly with interactions between the police and people of color, especially young African American men. We need to be training and continually training, not like one day of training, about bias and implicit bias, about use of force, about what happens to a person's body when they're in that kind of high adrenaline situation, about what police are trained for. These programs exist. We're getting better data. We need to do that, and we need to hold our police accountable. We also need to recognize that mostly, the police are running into places that we're running out of. But like everywhere that we work, in hospitals and nonprofits, everywhere, there's good people and there's not as good people. And so we have to be prepared to deal with it when there's somebody who really shouldn't be there. The other thing we have to do is build up those relationships between the community and the people who are policing them. We've been doing some of those programs, bagels with the beat cop, donuts, whatever, bringing people in to talk about it, to talk about how they feel, to talk about how they feel about their neighborhoods. And I think those things helping to build that trust, rebuild that trust, is really important.
I just want to say this to that last point. Those of you who are going into cities like Chester, places like Chester, where you have such a high crime rate, and as pointed out here, people are living in trauma. Don't be dissuaded if the first or second time you go down there, you're not received very well. It takes a minute to believe that somebody is actually coming in here and want to be here to help you. That was one of my points at the 911 center, that when people call, they call expecting to hear a police car is on the way. Say that first, then get more data. If you try to get data and say calm down, and I'm witnessing a shooting, I'm not calming down, because it's coming close to me, and it's right here where I live. So there's little things that can mean a lot, but don't be dissuaded in your efforts to help. If you're put off a little bit, understand that, but come back again and come back again. And once people become familiar with you, then they're more prone to open up.